Hello everyone, it is Toby here and welcome back to take two of me recording this video because I recorded the entire thing without the new mic turned on, which is never, ever a helpful thing to do. But today we are talking about how to program yourself for a strongman competition. Now, a lot of you guys watching this video won't need this advice. You guys are already competing yourselves, having fun, and a lot of you don't even want to compete either. But for those of you who are going into your first or second early competition in strongman and have absolutely no idea how to peak towards it properly and how to program yourself for all these new fun and exciting events, here is the video for you. I am going to talk through exactly how I get programmed for peaking towards a competition, and indeed how I've programmed myself in the past. I am now working with Big Loz as my coach, so I've learned a lot through that as well. I'm going to take all this knowledge that I have accumulated and talk you through how I program myself, or I don't program myself, Loz does it, but how I am programmed and how I have programmed myself in the past for a strongman competition and how I think it is best to approach all these fun, new, fancy events for your first competition. Now, strongman competitions are usually structured in a very similar way, especially at the lower level. So it's usually 5 or 6 events, and it usually kicks off with some form of deadlift, and then some form of overhead, some form of moving, some form of like extra sort of throw-in event that's a good fun one, that's a good spectacle one, just another extra little event in there as event number 4, and then some form of loading, whether it be stones, kegs, sandbags, that sort of thing, at the end of the competition to finish off. And now, obviously, you don't want to start thinking up your program until you've heard the events, but you can certainly make a good start. And just for the general purpose of all of you, we're going to go for the structure that I have at Oxfordshire's Strongest Man coming up, which is a car deadlift, an overhead medley, a farmer's into arm over arm pull, a car roll, and keg over bar medley. So it fits that sort of structure that I spoke about a minute ago. And I'm a week out from Oxfordshire's Strongest Man now. So I've just finished my full 12-week block of training for this basically, and I have a deload week for the next week. So I thought this is the perfect time, while it's all fresh in my brain, to talk through how that program went and how you guys can apply the same sort of principles to your own programming for your own competition. And I think a few of you will be shocked just how easy it actually is and just how simple it can be to train for a strongman competition. So without further ado, let's jump in to the program. Now, a lot of people go way too event specific, way too quickly with strongman training. They see the events they've got and they think they've got to hammer the events every single day. And that is not the case. It is strongman. You need to be strong. You need to still be strength training without getting too hyper fixated on the events. If you're strong enough, the events will come naturally. Now, I'm not saying do no event training, and you will see in this program that we are going to be doing a significant amount of it. I'm just saying do not forget the strength roots that you need, especially at the lower level of this sport. So to kick things off then, I like to start the week off with a leg day, and my leg days are mainly unchanged between the off season and specific competition prep, because it's not often we see a squat in competition, but the principles of squatting are really important for strongman. So I still like to do heavy back squats every single week. And then as my back off sets, I have switched recently to doing front squats, because with strongman, a lot of what you're going to have to do is going to be out in front of you. So getting a really strong front squat is going to help you massively with the event specific training. So I'd recommend on your leg day, if you're not doing already, do some form of heavy back squat and then follow it up with some heavy front squats as your sort of 2 main movers. And then you can't really go wrong with doing a heavy leg press or a hack squat or something like that, just to get some really good volume and strength through the legs. Now, for me personally, I've got a car deadlift coming up in competition, which is side-handled and way more leg-focused. So instead of the leg press, I tend to do a trap bar deadlift. But for you, if it is just some form of normal deadlift out in front of you, forget about that till deadlift day. Just do a normal strength training leg day with some squats, some front squats to get that little bit of specific training in there. But they are just a fantastic strength builder anyway, that you should be doing anyway, in my opinion. And then some heavy leg press as well. And then your normal like hamstring curls, leg extensions type thing. Your leg day, very, very simple. We don't need to spend any more time on that. You should really be doing a leg day like that anyway. just leave it mainly unchanged. This is where you're going to build some solid strength. And then the next day, for me, I usually do a pressing day. So a lot of people, this would be like a bench press focused session where you do chest, shoulders, tries, that sort of thing. And it is going to remain largely unchanged. But with a strongman competition, you're going to find that there is very rarely a bench press type movement in there. So you're going to switch strict shoulder press to be the focus of today's session, with bench press as the primary accessory. So like the squats, we had squats, then front squats. We're going to do a standing strict overhead press. Now, this is where we can get a bit specific. If you've got a log press in competition, do the standing strict press with a log. If you've got an axle press, do the standing strict press with an axle. Now, this can be out of a rack. You don't need to do it from the floor because we're just trying to focus on the shoulder pressing portion of the movement, but it is really useful to get used to these implements by doing strict press with them, because you can find out how your body best moves in the press with these implements. So I'd focus on strict pressing, whichever implement that you have in competition. Now, the only exception is, of course, going to be the circus dumbbell, because you're never going to be in a position where you need to press that out, because it is largely going to be a throw and catch movement. So if it is just a circus dumbbell or something like that in competition, I'd do strict press with a barbell. But for the most part, just do your apparatus that you got in competition. It's normally going to be a log. It's normally going to be an axle. Grab that, put it in the rack, do some strict press with it, then follow it up with some bench press, but not just any bench press. I do some close grip bench press to really target the triceps, and then just your normal sort of bro split arms and shoulders sort of workout. Doesn't need to be fancy. You just need to get some blood through the muscles and get strong. Now, deadlift day is going to be very similar to the pressing day, where normally, obviously, you're going to be focusing on a normal, just conventional deadlift from the floor to lockout. That is all you need to do. But in competition, it is very likely that you're going to have a specific deadlift variation. So you might have an axle, you might have an 18-inch deadlift, you might have a variety of different heights, and you might have a trap bar deadlift, car deadlift, something to the side. Now, for me, I've got a max axle deadlift coming up in a competition very soon. So I am focusing my deadlifts at the minute on a stiff bar, and then as soon as this competition's out the way, I'm going to focus on the axle. For you, if you've got an axle deadlift in competition, I want you to switch all of your deadlifting over to an axle. Get used to using it, get used to the equipment. Similarly, if you've got a deadlift from a raised height, do it from a raised height. Just try and mimic the apparatus in competition as best as you can on deadlift day, and then keep the rest of your accessories pretty much bang on the exact same, what you've been doing anyway to gain your strength. So whether that be pause deadlifts, RDLs, deficit deadlifts, just keep it the same, but try and use the bar or apparatus that you're using in the competition for those. Obviously, with RDLs, you could probably get away with using a normal barbell, same with bent over rows, as opposed to like an axle. But for your main bulk of the deadlifting stuff, keep it with the bar that you're going to be using in competition. Now, I don't mean the specific bar. If it's a mirror fit deadlift bar, you don't have to go out and buy a deadlift bar. But if it's just going to be a standard width bar, use a standard width bar. If it's going to be an axle, use an axle. But other than that, keep your deadlift day the exact same accessories, and just get strong in the deadlift. That'll help you out massively. And now you will have seen that there is really no event-specific training for any of the other events so far, just a little bit on the overhead press and a little bit on the deadlift. Now, session number 4, the final session of the week, is going to be your events day. It is going to be a pressing-focused events day because you're still going to want to get a compound movement out the way, but it's going to be structured in pretty much the exact same way as the competition. Now, this is the caveat. Obviously, if you have access to the Strongman equipment in a Strongman gym or at home, then use that. If you're in a commercial gym, you can use various different things to substitute for what you've got to do. I'll go over some examples, but I might make a full video about commercial gym strongman replacements. If you want to see that, leave a like on the video, comment down below that you do, and I'll make it very soon. But for now, we're just going to go through the structure of session number 4, assuming that you have access to the different equipment or you have the knowledge to be able to substitute it correctly. So you're going to start off this session with the pressing movement that you've got in competition. So whether it's a log press, you're going to do the log press exactly like you will in competition, floor to overhead with a push press. axle the exact same, might be a Viking press, might be a circus dumbbell, might be a block press. Whatever it is, you're going to want to start off this session with that pressing movement. So for me, I've got a dumbbell medley, so I will start off my session number 4 with the double dumbbells into the circus dumbbell and practice that medley. This is where you're going to be wanting to practice exactly how it's going to be in competition, and it is not going to be at competition weight, because as you know from your other strength training, you can't max out every single session. You've got to build up to it. So it's the exact same principle with the events here. You're going to want to build up over the weeks leading up to the competition and then peak for the competition day where this has all got to come together. So stick a bit below comp weight, do reps and sets. Just normal strength training principles that you can apply to any other strength training, apply it to these events. So start off with whichever pressing movement that you've got in this session, and then you want to follow that up with some form of accessory that's going to help that pressing movement. So for example, I've got circus dumbbell. So at the minute, my main accessory is a kneeling single arm dumbbell press, which is a fantastic accessory for circus dumbbell. With the log, you might do incline log press from the rack. With an axle, you might do axle pin press in the rack, for example. Just some form of accessory that's going to help your weakness in that pressing movement. And then once that pressing movement and its accessory is out the way, it is now time to do your events. And the most important thing you have to remember is to do them in the order in which they're going to be in the competition. Now, you might have seen that come through mainly in the program already, because in a competition, normally the deadlift or the overhead will be up first. So we keep the deadlift on its own session on a deadlift day because it is such a heavy and taxing event. You don't want to be going balls to the wall and do all of the events all at once every single week. So we keep that thing separate because it is probably the most taxing. And then the overhead press is the one we hit first because it is normally very, very early on in the competition. And then we want to move on to what's going to be like the next soonest event in the competition. So for me, at the moment, that's the farmer's walk into the arm over arm pull. And as you might expect, what I'm doing for that is I am doing some farmer's walk into arm over arm pull. I'm focusing on a few sets at the farmers, and then I do one big top set where I do the farmers for the distance and then run and do the arm over arm pull straight away. And that is the best way to sort of training in a comp-like setting. And by doing that every week, you can make the mistakes in training that you don't want to make on competition day and figure out the best way to do these things, because they are very technical and specific events. And if you make the mistakes in training, then you don't have to make them on competition day. And then after the farmers into the arm over arm pull, the next event in my competition is the car roll. So I am doing some tire flip for that in training, some nice aggressive tire flip. So that comes next after we've done the farmers into the arm over arm pull. And the last thing we do with the session is going to be the last event. And trust me, you're going to be tired. You're going to be huffing and puffing. You might not want to do it, but trust me, in the competition, you're going to feel the exact same. So by training the events in the same order, you're going to be a similar level of tired going into the event as you will be on competition day. So I finish off with the keg loading for me, which is loading over post. You might finish off with the stones. You might finish off with power stairs, whatever it's going to be that's going to be your last event in the competition. That is what you're going to want to end the week of training off with, and then have a couple days rest. Now, obviously, if you're training in a commercial gym, you might not have access to all of the specific events training stuff. But as I said, there are plenty of substitutes that you can do. So if I just do a quick example, you can train circus dumbbell in the commercial gym. They'll have dumbbells. You can do that. You can train at farmers walk in a commercial gym. 9 times out of 10, there will be a trap bar deadlift apparatus there. There'll be heavy dumbbells. You can walk with the dumbbells. You can walk with the trap bar deadlift. Now, if the gym does not have a space for you to walk up and down, then pick up the trap bar and do barbell marches, essentially trap bar marches, which is just walking on the spot with it. That'll help tax your grip. That'll help sort of get you used to walking with a heavy weight. Do that in place of the farmers and it'll help you out massively. Now, tire flip and the kegs are a bit more difficult. Hopefully you'll have access to something similar, but if you don't, then you can easily, with the kegs, for example, just stack up a bunch of plates and try and lift them off the floor to your lap. That's a really good exercise for keg loading. For tire flip, it's a bit more tricky, but the front squats we're doing on the leg day should help you with that strength in the quads to flip a tire. But as I said, you should be able to get access to at least some of this stuff. A lot of gyms now have a tire that you can flip, but if you can't, then lots of front squats, you'll be fine. But yeah, that is generally the structure of the training program, and you might be shocked about how simple that actually is. You barely have to barely have to change anything from your off-season training block. You can still just do your normal leg day, basically your normal pressing day, basically your normal deadlift day. And then the only thing that really changes is pressing number 2, where you put in all of the events in the order you're going to do them, and you just do one solid events day. There's no need to do events every single day. That's an easy way to burn out and become absolutely way too fatigued to do well in the competition. You still got to be strong. You don't want to neglect the strength training side of it. It might seem like grunt work. You might seem really excited to do specific events training, but trust me, save yourself for the one day on the Friday to get that done. It's the best way to do it, in my opinion. And that is essentially how to train for a strongman competition. And yeah, with any other strength training program, you'll know you have to build up over multiple weeks to a peak. It's the exact same with the strongman prep, but you want your peak to be the competition day. So build up over 6 to 12 weeks, take a deload week, and then have the peak day be your competition, and you should absolutely smash it. So hopefully that has been interesting for all of you guys. It's always nice to go through stuff like this, where it's stuff that I have learned very, very well over my last sort of 5 years doing strongman. I remember my first competition. I wish I had known to do stuff like this, and perhaps I wouldn't have done as bad as I did in my first competition. I didn't do that bad. I came 6th, but perhaps I could have podiumed or even won that competition if I had trained better and not just fully flung myself into the events every single day and really enjoyed it. But hopefully you guys found that useful. Hopefully a lot of you guys training for your first or second competitions can implement some of those practices. But anyway, I've been Toby. Thank you so much for watching. I've now got a deadlift session to get done, my last heavy deadlift session of competition prep. Look out for that on the channel early next week. But anyway, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.